about Rohingyas and minorities in Burma, Myanmar. And I'm extra happy because I'm former president of the Swedish Burma Committee, but I'm only a member today there. But me and my colleague Ulle Torell, we are MPs active in the Burma network within the Swedish Parliament. So thank you Ulle and thank you Mehmet, and so we could cooperate together with all the organizations we will listen to today, and we are very happy that so many people have come today. So I will give the floor to Frida Perjes from the Olof Palme International Center, who will be the moderator for this seminar.
Thank you very much, Roger Haddad. I also want to say thank you to Mehmet Kaplan for arranging this very important hearing. We are also happy that the Parliamentary Network on Burma is endorsing this hearing. This hearing was arranged with a very short notice, which underscores the urgency of the acute situation in Rakhine State. The organizations that are involved in this hearing today are the Swedish Rohingya Association, the Swedish Burma Committee, Civil Rights Defenders, the Olof Palme International Center, the Swedish Arbitrary Society, Swedish Muslims for Peace and Justice. Burma has become a country where conflictual problematic issues has been overshadowed by the positive reforms. They disturb the image of a country freed from over 50 years of harsh military rule. The persecution of Rohingyas is one of those underreported conflicts. Rakhine State is a bomb waiting to explode, and the conflict could potentially block Burma's many positive reforms. It is a conflict that has already had regional implications. Sweden has, at this point, a very special responsibility to act because we finance the census, which contributed to the recent waves of attacks on INGOs and the evacuation of the same. Today's hearing will hopefully answer some of the following questions. What is the current situation facing Rohingyas in Rakhine State today? How has the conflict escalated this year, and what is the international response, or lack of thereof? The Swedish and the EU response to a crisis of this magnitude has been extremely disappointing. We want to expose this and bring attention to how serious the situation in Rakhine State is. The first speaker today is Abul Kalam from the Swedish Rohingya Association, who will give a short background to the current situation in Rakhine State and also give a short definition of the Rohingyas as an ethnic group. After that, Britis Edman from Civil Rights Defenders will talk about the crisis from a human rights perspective. Tun Kin from the Burmese Rohingya organizations in the UK will then give a short presentation on the EU response to the crisis since 2012 and the attacks against INGOs as well as the recent massacres of Rohingyas in Rakhine State. After that, the Swedish Burma Committee will show a short video from Sitwe in Rakhine State. Our final speaker will be Sinmar Ang, who is a former political prisoner and a democracy activist based in Rangoon. We are also pleased to have Mohammed Ibrahim from the European Rohingya Council here today from Germany. And after that, we will leave about 30 minutes for questions and answers. And since we have very short time and many speakers, we ask you to save your questions until after the presentation. Thank you. Abul Kalam, I give the floor to you.
Respected members of the Parliament, Mr. Mehmet Kaplan, Rohit Haddad, and other participants in this hearing program. This hearing session going to focus about the current situation in Arakan, Burma, and especially the situation of the Rohingya people living in Arakan, but also bring up to the issue of human rights, in particular question concerning some minority people who are different religion than the prevailing Buddhist religion. I myself, I am a Rohingya. Who is the Rohingya? Rohingya is a Muslim community living in Arakan State. We are nowadays 1.5 million people are living as exile in other countries. 1 or exactly how much. So 1 or 2 million people living inside the country. So I want to say first, everybody, hello, assalamu alaikum, Hingaba. My name is Abul Kalam. I am founder of the Swedish Rohingya Association and also working for European Rohingya Council with the responsibility mainly as a development and welfare secretary. The current situation of the Arakan today is very bad. Since large scale of violence broken out in 2012, hundreds of people have been killed and hundreds of thousands of displaced. 140,000 people living in IDP camps and 70,000 people displaced from home and living in unincorporated areas. Close to other Rohingya villages, often in jungle areas where they survive by help of other Rohingya villagers. Still many people are fleeing the country to escape the persecution that alerts of everywhere now and there. Then, when the houses and villages burn down and people are even killed, people fleeing by crossing the fishing boat to Bangladesh, Thailand, Indonesia, and other countries, they are dying, drowning on the way. And if they reach their destination, they are often treated with very brutality, imprisoned, and taken as free labor. The crew of Thai fishing boat and then is held there or taken on the job. This is a tragedy beyond compare. It was recently conducted a census in the country in many ways, both desirable and necessary, and with a promise from the Myanmar government that it would be conducted according to international standards with approved and properly regulation. The census was partially financed by countries such as Sweden, as one of the major funders have been paid 49 million Swedish krona. The implementation and the result of the census have been heavily criticized, including by the UK and US, because it has created and fueled tremendous conflict. As for Rohingya, not allowed to register as a Rohingya, but the only option was to call themselves Bengali. Those who refused to write Bengali, the authorities punished them in many areas where the media was absent. There is hot threats. What has happened so far is unknown. When the census just completed, what will happen, we do not know that. There is a reason to Sweden raises its assistance. We, association with Burma on our agenda, has to early stage raise the issue with both Swedish International Development Agency and the Foreign Ministry and warn of the possible consequences of bad completed census. Still, we are not, we didn't get any feedback from them. Sweden also has a large aid budget allocated to Burma during the next 3 years, up to 750 million Swedish krona. In light of this, sustainable SIDA, the Swedish International Development Authority budget to Myanmar, it should once again be create reason that we require the country to behave in a way that it deserves our support and help, both financially and with expertise in different areas. So far, well, Myanmar hardly meet even a minimum of the criteria you can say for a country on the road to democracy, at least not as well as for Rohingyas. The Swedish International Development Authority money springlet over Burma should also be allocated to initiative in Arakan province. And in general, I would again insist that Sweden really requires that Myanmar government that they must make themselves deserving of the money they receive free from us, from Sweden. Otherwise, ethnic and religious groups are strongly based by a fascist mentality because of nationalist aspirations from the centuries in the Europe in Burmese. This can be summarized as Amoy Bata Tatana. It means one race, one language, one religion. The event that took off in 2012 was strongly influenced by the Buddhist monk Viratu propaganda to clean out the Muslim in Rakhine State. He also appeared to have a strong support for this unhealthy nationalistic and Islamophobia tendencies of the Burmese regime, which clearly stated whether they consider the Rohingya people will leave Rakhine province and go to Bangladesh or any other country where they belong. Through Swedish aid to Myanmar, so we support such an approach if we are not very sharply and clearly pronounce our criticism that this is completely unacceptable. Our aid should perhaps be conditional, otherwise it will need to draw in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abul Kalam. You were mentioning a little bit about the situation for the Rohingyas in Burma. There are over 140,000 IDPs currently. There's also many refugees living outside IDP camps in very difficult conditions. Sweden has been supporting the census in Burma that has been very criticized for being discriminatory against the Rohingyas. And Abul Kalam asked the questions, why hasn't the Swedish government demanded respect for the Rohingyas' human rights as a condition for foreign aid? I will now give the floor to Ritis Edman from Civil Rights Defenders.
Thank you. The picture that Abul Kalam is painting is disturbing. I will add to that further. And I'd like to say that the reports filtering out from Rakhine about the situation, in particular in the IDP camps, but also in other areas, are a cause for extreme concern at this point. At the same time, what's more concerning, I believe, are the reports we are not receiving, because there is a reduction of witnesses that is happening day by day in Rakhine. Following the violence in 2012, around 140,000 ethnic minority Rohingya live in various IDP camps around the capital Sittwe and beyond. They've been forcibly displaced and live with restrictions of movement, unable to return home and unable to take up their regular livelihoods. They rely heavily on humanitarian support, which at this moment is severely disrupted. In late February, the government forced Médecins Sans Frontières to end its operation in Rakhine and to stop providing medical assistance because they had Rohingya patients. In March, an outbreak of violence led to the emergency relocation of some 300 humanitarian workers from Rakhine. Numbers vary, but between 700 and 1,000 staff of humanitarian organizations, including local staff members, have had to stop their work. Services for an estimated 2,700 malnourished children are currently suspended, as well as psychosocial support for 15,000 children in the IDP camps. Health referrals to hospitals have drastically reduced. Reports indicate a serious deterioration generally on the situation on the health situation, with an increasing number of preventable deaths reported. Outside the camps, up to 700,000 people have difficulties to access clean water and basic services, including healthcare and humanitarian support, according to a UN report last month. And behind this current crisis, there is a pattern of discrimination against the Rohingya. For years, they've been facing restrictions on a range of human rights, including freedom of movement, the right to an education, how many children they are allowed to have, and in relation to marriage. Many are stateless. After the outbreaks of violence in 2012, there has been an increase in hate speech from extreme Buddhist nationalist groups. These appear to be gaining ground, according to some analysts, as part of the election campaign ahead of the 2015 general elections. There's anecdotal evidence of hate speech campaigning being followed by outbursts of violence. There is also impunity for the suspected perpetrators of this kind of violence. Reports to human rights groups monitoring the situation on the ground suggest that police stand idly by. Few investigations take place. If they do, they are far from independent. Without the state, the Burmese states acting to end hate speech, violence, state-sponsored discrimination and blockages of humanitarian assistance, the situation will go from very bad to grim. It also risks derailing the much-lauded reform process that Myanmar has embarked upon. The process is extremely volatile and vulnerable, and the international community, including Sweden, needs to underscore that protection of human rights for all people of Myanmar and its engagement is key, and in its engagement with Myanmar, it also needs to make sure that human rights are part of benchmarks to measure progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Grete Sedman. I will now give the floor to Tung Kin from the Burmese Rohingya organizations in the UK.
First of all, I would like to thank to the organizers inviting me to this event to speak here today. And I would like to express many thanks to my friends joining to this event. And it's a great honor to speak here. I will be pointing out some timeline and timeline how Rohingyas are in our country, just not a historical fact, just to understand more about. Like when you look at the Rohingyas, during democratic period time, Rohingya were recognized as an ethnic group. From 1948 to 1962, on that time, Rohingya parliamentary MPs were there. Even my grandfather was a parliamentary secretary on that time. But I'm not a citizen of Burma until today. And on that time, Rohingya language were broadcasted from Burma radio broadcasting program. And first, they stripped up 1965 ethnicity. And 1978, they operate in a garming operation, which is called King Dragon. They driven out 200,000 Rohingyas to Bangladesh. And after that, 1982 citizenship law they introduced, and that law made the 1 million over Rohingya today stateless in their own homeland. Because of that law, I am not a citizen of Burma until today, even though my grandfather was a parliamentary secretary. It's continuing going on, and 2010 when President Thein Sein came power, we are facing the worst persecution. It is actually, you have to look at the situation. It's a proper design, long decades going on, systematic persecution to the Rohingyas, to destroy the whole minority, denying their existence. That is what they're practicing. You can see, international community have strongly supported President Thein Sein, so-called reformer. But when President Thein Sein came to power, 150,000 Rohingya become IDPs, and anti-Rohingya campaign were instigated, and that brought 2010 violence, and thousands of people were killed, and many thousands of Rohingya were left by boat. We don't know where they are. We are receiving the information from the ground. I remember my friends who sent me the information, they were disappeared until today. I remember my friends, my friends' friends who were arrested, in Butidao jail, more than 1,000. They were tortured, they were, killed, brutally killed by security forces. And what we can see here is, EU have as such a timeline and benchmark in 2011, their resolution. For Rohingya, there will be a status and also improvement of their situation need to be met in 2011 resolution of EU. And what happened in 2012? 150,000 IDPs, new apartheid system introduced, and thousands of Rohingya were, flee from the country. Mass killing, disappearance were gone. But instead of that, the sanction was lifted, and it's encouraged to the president things in government to create more violence. And you can see in his own words, he mentioned that Rohingyas are not citizens of Burma, they are illegal immigrants. The only solution for the Rohingyas is keeping them in a camps and sending them to the third countries. That is what he mentioned with his own words. Because of his own words to UNHCR High Commissioner, today, like more than 1 million Rohingya like me, they become like Bengali illegal immigrants. But the whole public of Burma, they do not know, like my grandfather was a parliamentary secretary on a democratic period of time, we become like illegal immigrant. So this is a kind of a strategic plan, it's pre-planned ethnic cleansing created by the government, state and central government to wipe up the whole minority. You can see recent attacks to international NGOs. It is coming towards the last stage. I'm wondering that, Swedish government have supported the census, and this census brought more anti-Rohingya campaign in Rakhine State. And because of that, that anti-Rohingya campaign, the mobs attacked INGOs. And it's a kind of consequences going on there. So I would like to point out some recommendations that particularly that Swedish government had to do as a top priority to get in all the INGOs, humanitarian aid groups, because currently children are dying. We are receiving information from IDP camps and other parts of Arakan. People do not know. They are living a kind of siege. They can't move from one place to another. Even they can't go to the medical health. They can't go to the clinic. They can't go to the market. So aid is the top priority. And secondly, international independent investigation. For Rohingya, this is important that we, unfortunately, it's sad to say we don't have friends inside Burma. The solution for the Rohingya to protect them is from the international community. Without the international community help, Rohingya will not be in our state. We need urgent protection. For that, international intervention is the top priority. For that, international investigation, independent investigation, Swedish government and EU countries should support. And that can establish the true facts, that can stop further attacks, that can bring those responsible to justice. And the third point is 1982 citizenship law. That law violates international customary law. And Swedish government should pressure, other foreign government to support efforts to amend that law in line with the international standard. As of now, we can see that diplomatic community accepting that there could be a pathway to citizenship Rohingya under the current law. This is deeply flawed approach, I should say, because this law in bilateral violation Myanmar international obligation as it denied Rohingya access to full citizenship. If this issue should not be solved, we are afraid that there will be more, certainly will be more violence in the future. This is some reports have mentioned, this is the core cause of the problem, the 1982 citizenship law. And crime against humanity is perpetrated by the UN special rapporteur have called for a long time, what he have found out. Last week we had a conference in London School of Economics. He has mentioned the situation, what he has seen, what he has found out of his 8 years experience. There is elements of genocide in our country, to the perspective to the Rohingya issue in our country. This is very worrying situation. So I would like to recommend, I would like to request and appeal to EU and Swedish government, particularly to provide aid, pressure on Burmese government and humanitarian international intervention to support international independent investigation and to amend 1982 citizenship law. And reconciliation is for the long term we need. We believe in side by side with the Rakhine community. Without reconciliation, there will not be peace in our country. What we believe is we can see EU and Swedish government, they are in a peace process. They have to also involve reconciliation part, where the root cause of the problem. It will not be easy task, but it will take time. But need to focus on that point. I hope this is enough. I'm very glad to see you all, and I hope you will take action for our people. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tun Kin from the Burmese Rohingya organizations in the UK. I just want to, as a conclusion, repeat your recommendations and the top priorities. The first one is to put pressure on the Burmese government to let aid agencies back into Rakhine State. The other one is to make sure that there's an independent international investigation into the ethnic cleansing of Rohingyas in Rakhine State. The third one is to amend the 1982 citizenship law. And the fourth is a reconciliation between the Rakhines and the Rohingyas, and that this needs to be a part of the peace process. Now it is time for the Swedish Parliament committee to show a short video clip from Sitwe.
Thank you. I will show two excerpts from. Can you hear me now? I will show two excerpts from a documentary by two Swedish journalists.